Yes, welcome to the Biz Communication Show. I'm your host, Bill Lampton. Every week, hosting a discussion with a widely recognized business communication expert so that they can help you boost your sales, marketing, management, leadership, customer service, and very importantly, your profits. Today is a very special treat for me and will be for you. Our guest today is Mike Stewart of Stewart Internet Solutions. I recognize today, as I thought back, that Mike became my internet technology guy, my mentor, and later on my marketing coach starting in 1997. So I have relied on this guy for 22 years, but not only have I relied on him, business leaders internationally have. Not only has he become a widely recognized expert in technology, that was when he was in Gainesville, Georgia, my home base where I operate my business from. But not too long ago, Mike left his lovely home on Lake Lanier, moved to Nashville, Tennessee. Well, why did he go there? Because that guy has more talent than is fair for any one person to have. And now Mike is writing music in Nashville while he's continuing his internet coaching and pioneering. So it's a great privilege and a great pleasure to welcome my good friend, and he's going to become your friend very quickly, Mike Stewart. Hello, Mike.
Hey, Bill. Thanks for having me and all those kind words. I hope I can live up to it, and I'm here to help people and serve people any way I can to understand that technology is here to stay, and technology can be your friend when you enter it with a mindset, I'm going to learn how to leverage it to help others and help myself.
Mike, it's important, I'm quite confident, that we talk about what entrepreneurs need to know to succeed in the business world. What technology do they need to know? And I come at this from personal experience, because prior to becoming an entrepreneur, shortly before I met you, I was in management for over 20 years. And when this stuff with computers started coming in, I didn't learn it. Like a lot of people, I was afraid of it. So what did I do? I delegated it. Well, guess what? When you become an entrepreneur, you have nobody to delegate to. So you better learn it. And I can still remember that day at the Georgia chapter of the National Speakers Association when I met you. And you said, hey, Bill, got a website? Yeah, Mike, I've got one. And I thought I did until I started looking at other people's websites, realized I didn't have one that was even acceptable, much less exceptional. So that's when I started my work with you. So Mike, I'm going to let you open up now and talk to us about what are the skills, 2 or 3 of them that we would have time to cover today, that an entrepreneur needs in technology, and how do they learn them?
Well, you know, the internet and computers and the technologies that are prevalent here in 2019 are just tools. The thing that hasn't changed is the subject that you're an expert at, and it's funny how people don't realize that skill set of communication, being able to say the exact right words that get the results that you want to do. In fact, one of my favorite things is the quote from Mark Twain: "The difference between lightning and lightning bug." You know, that's how different words can be in communicating. And one of the things that I see people do is not focusing on saying the right information, the right content to do 2 things on the internet that's very, very important. And every entrepreneur should embrace this. One, creating great, compelling messages of content, because great, compelling messages of content are what get you found. And great, compelling messages of content are what convince people to make the decision to either connect with you, engage with you, or even ultimately buy from you. And so if you were to put it in a blanket thing, you know, all of these tools, computers, and in fact, I'm writing a new presentation right now, marketing to and with the cell phone, something I've been a fan of In fact, I'm holding my cell phone right here. I just looked it up recently. Did you know that the cell phone is 1,000,000 times more powerful than the computer that got us on the moon?
I've heard those comparisons, and it's rather remarkable when we think of it that way. And many of us of even earlier generations can remember reading the Dick Tracy comic strip, and Dick Tracy was supposed to be so far ahead of everybody else because he, as I remember, he had a wristwatch that I think was a radio, possibly.
I think it was a TV set. There was a little TV screen when I remember reading it.
Okay.
But the thing is all of these things, this is just a miniature computer that happens to have a phone in it connected to the internet. So when you ask the question to me, what should entrepreneurs learn to do? Well, number one is they need to learn to communicate their message. Media are just tools. Media was originally print. In fact, a lot of people in my world of internet marketing say, they'll say the joke, who invented the internet? And the joke will be Al Gore. But we all laugh because we say the inventor of the internet was Gutenberg. Gutenberg was the first technology, the printing press, that enabled information to be captured and distributed to the masses. And that's all radio, television, Morse code, and now the internet. The internet is just a faster, more robust media. So just because you have a website, just because you understand how to market to a cell phone or whatever device that's connected to the internet that you want to market to, the key skill that you've got to do is say the right word. Are you saying lightning bug or are you saying lightning? Do people understand your marketing message? Do they understand what problems you solve? Do they understand how? Don't put up what we call marketing roadblocks. Me and my partner, who consult several small businesses, talk about response triggers. The communication of saying the right exact communication to command a response. And those are the skills that if you don't have those skills, you need to find somebody who does have it. Anybody can build a beautiful website. There's lots of web designers out there, but very few people are skilled at the right message that's going over the media of the internet. And the most important media today is the cell phone, because statistically, more people look for your entrepreneurial business, services, products, store, whatever it is you do. They're searching for you on a cell phone, not so much on a computer anymore. They're probably watching this video on a cell phone. So learning to create masterful, outrageous content that can be delivered to a cell phone is the skill every entrepreneur should embrace. And that's what I try to help my folks understand. How do you look here? You're using Zoom technology. I'm in Nashville. You're in Gainesville, Georgia right now. Yet we're having a video conversation that we can share with the world through the power of social media video, LinkedIn, Facebook. The whole opportunities are just amazing that I've witnessed in my lifetime. I was alive when they put a man on the moon, and we marveled at that. But the technology that we have affordable, well, most of it's even free. YouTube's free. Zoom is free. Everybody already owns one of these devices. There's no excuse for not creating compelling, engaging, direct response content. And that's the one skill. If you had to say one skill, being able to communicate, which you are the master of communication, being able to communicate with the media that exists today is the skill every entrepreneur should have.
Mike, there's something that you bring to mind when you talk about that. Edward R. Murrow was one of the famous broadcasters of World War II. And also he became, even after the war, he became very known still internationally. And he had around him in New York a group of guys who later on would also become very, very famous. Charles Kuralt. I happened to one time host Charles Kuralt at an event and had considerable time with him before and afterwards. And I'll have to say, it was a great privilege because he was one of those people who was just as warm off the air as he was on it. But the point I want to get to, I have a book by Charles Kuralt, and in the preface to the book, he talks about his time with Edward R. Murrow and Murrow's boys, as they call themselves. He said one day they were sitting at a bar, which they did often at the end of the day to talk about the broadcast industry. And Murrow turned to the group and he said, I want each one of you to recognize that just because you now have the technology to speak to many millions of people at once, that doesn't make you any smarter or any wiser or any more of an authority. That stuck with Kuralt, and it should stick with us because that's exactly what you're saying. The technology is here. But you and I remember when computers just started coming in, we heard GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. So
Mhm.
if we've got the technology, but we haven't sharpened the message, and as you said so well, a message that people will respond to, either they contact us or they meet us or they eventually purchase our product or our services. I had I had one friend I remember who once said, you know, my website is wonderful. Why, I've looked at it thousands of times. But the point is, I think this is a great contribution you're making today. Learning all the technology. In fact, one of the true gurus of podcasting, I've read his book, and I go by what he says. His comment is, the technology is a small part of it.
Mhm. Absolutely. Um, you know that some of the most successful online communicators are people who do, and in fact, this is something you should Google if you haven't never Googled these kind of terms, or content marketing. Google that and read some of the blog posts and read some of the articles. People like Gary Vaynerchuk, Seth Grod, Seth Godin, I think. Yeah, Seth Godin. I'm sorry.
Yes.
These are all brilliant insiders. There's a great book that I've read called The Long Tail. Chris Anderson is another very phenomenal content marketer
You
who owns,
recommended that book to me. I remember that.
and all of those. He wrote The Long Tail. He wrote The Freemium. Um, the psychologies and the observations of mega success stories like Google, Amazon, Netflix. Um, there's just so many trailblazers who've proven what works and what doesn't work, and especially on the internet. A discussion of Amazon 30 years ago would have been, there's no way, it's impossible, can't function. But then the guy who got the idea for Amazon went to the experts of the day, and they said, "You're crazy, that'll never work." And then when he called himself the largest bookstore on the planet, they sued him because they said, "You don't even have a store." Well, they were not looking at the technological paradigm shifts that you build your content and you build your connectivity with human beings. You still got to remember that on the other side of that screen is a human being, and how people respond to information and how they respond to the way you present information hasn't changed in years and years, but the media has changed. I love it when people say, "Can you help me with my social media?" And I go, "Well, do you really understand what it is?" And they'll say, "Well, it's Facebook, it's LinkedIn." No, it's content that people feel value in sharing. And lots of times it can be all kinds of content. It can be hatred. It can be dissatisfaction. It's a lot of negativity, but there's a lot of positive information that's shared. So you choose what the content is. And you realize that the internet is radio, television, and print all wrapped into one. It's the electronic distribution worldwide to mobile computers called cell phones. That's why it's exploded in the last 15 years, is that when Steve Jobs really made the true smartphone, which is just another word for mobile computer, and it has the ability to be a television camera, a recording studio, a ability to write, ability to create, ability to modify information, the ability to share information, the ability to collaborate. and about 1,000, 10,000 other things, you either embrace those technologies, but you embrace them with the mindset, I have got to make exceptional content. And that's why I love technologies, but I love teaching people how to leverage them to the good of their business and the good of their communications.
And that's why I said at the outset, you're not only a technology coach, you're a marketing coach as well. Mike, we're going to have to close in a minute, but one point I definitely want to make that you and I are both so much aware of. That is that in the last 15 years, a person might could have said 15 years ago, this stuff is too tough. I can't learn it. It's too complex. And I go back to the seminar that I attended that you directed in Atlanta, where it took a day and a half for you to teach us how to produce our own videos. That is so minimalized now. You could teach somebody that probably in 2 to 3 hours, and the equipment is so much cheaper. You can't say, I can't afford this. As you say, if you got a phone, you're already in business. So I'm sure you would say to your clients, you can do this. And I've heard you say before, guess what? Even with video, you don't have to be perfect, folks.
No, no. Well, that's what's happened since I got involved. 15 years ago, it was not difficult, but it had a bunch of roadblocks. It had a bunch of moving parts, as we called it. But it was, you could accomplish. 30 years ago, when I got into video production, it was expensive equipment. It took major editing skills. It took more steps than you can imagine to make quality video content. And fast forward all these years later, you can pretty much make anything imaginable with a $30 webcam. I'm on a $30 webcam right now. I shoot most of my video content with my iPhone that I have anyway. Most people either have an Android or an iPhone. And the camera in those devices is better than television cameras that cost $40,000 and $50,000 in the 80s.
And you and I used to have $500 and $600 cameras.
Absolutely.
That's what you had to have. Mike, as we're drawing to a close, I know, first of all, thank you again so much for being with us and sharing these wonderful insights. I know there are people who want to contact you, so please give us your contact information.
Well, a little marketing tip. I always have my website on my shirt so that somebody comes up to me and they go, how can you get in touch with me? My business to the entrepreneur is Websites You Control, which is a simpler way of putting WordPress websites. There's lots of ways of managing your work.
That shows how popular you are.
Oh yeah. Well, we'll have to tell that Skype to not call me here.
Hello, Skype. This is Mike. Mike calling, Mike answering. Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm sorry about that interruption, but that shows you that's what the internet is if you're accessible.
Yes, sir. Anyway, now your contact information, websiteyoucontrol.com.
Websiteyoucontrol.com. Websiteyoucontrol.com is how you can get in touch with me. It has my phone number. It has a lot of free information, and it's kind of an overview of what I do with entrepreneurs as a stepping stone. I teach all kinds of internet technologies and how to use the cell phone to build content, to build your YouTube channel, to do podcasting. And the laundry list of things to do is just more time than you have right now. But, you know, I invite people, give me a call, and I love to do a free consultation. I will talk to anyone for an hour just to let you know, evaluate what you could do, how we could work together. And that invitation is always out to any of the folks that follow you, Bill. Just have them call me and let's look at what's going on and see if we can make a difference in it.
Believe me, Mike is well worth contacting. As I say, I've been doing that myself for 22 years with great results. Mike, now that you've given your contact information, I will give mine. Biz Communication Guy, Bill Lampton. So logically, the website is biz, B-I-Z, bizcommunicationguy.com. Invite you to go there, check my services to corporations and to leaders. would love for you to sign up for my newsletter. And as Mike says about his own services, call me and let's talk about your communication challenges and how I can help you overcome them and become a champion communicator. Mike Stewart, any closing comments?
Well, Bill, I am proud of you. You have embraced all of the things that we've recommended. You're using them. You're living proof that everybody can and should use these technologies to get your message out. And so my final words is, final words, but my final thought is, don't let fear of technology paralyze you.
Very well said. Very well said, as the entire program was. Mike, thank you again so much for being with us, and for our viewers and listeners, we're happy that you were with us too. Join us next week, please, for another terrific guest and highly informative conversation on the Biz Communication Show. I'm your host, Bill Lampton.